Hello everyone, Alaska Prepper here. Well, I've been telling you guys that I had a surprise video for you guys, and hopefully you will enjoy this. This is the first telephonic interview that the Alaska Prepper channel is doing. And our guest today is Keith S. And you guys may recognize him as a subscriber of the Alaska Prepper channel community. So he's actually a subscriber. He's an everyday guy, just like most of us are. And we're going to be talking about the grand solar minimum. Now, for anyone that doesn't agree with what we're saying, it's okay to disagree with it. The intent of this video is to get people to do their own research and not to believe everything they hear. So I don't necessarily want you to believe everything I'm telling you or everything you're hearing on this episode, but do your own research and go look beyond what you're being told by the mainstream media, because that's what really counts. As long as you're satisfied with the questions and answers that you have and that you can provide for yourselves, that's what really matters, because it will help you become a better prepper if you can prepare for something that you know in your mind is going to happen or may have a chance of happening. So this may be part one of a part two series, because with my low-tech equipment, my stuff can only handle so much memory. So, and that's how the Alaska Prepper channel likes to keep it. Low-tech, but sincere. So before we start, before I introduce Keith to you all, I want to do a quick disclaimer, which covers pretty much what I said. This episode is based on our opinion, okay? Neither Keith or I are scientists, okay? And the information that we are providing here has been derived through personal research and is being used in order to open your minds to the possibility that the Earth will be going into a cooling cycle that will affect life as we know it. So please do your own research and come up with your own conclusion. But the main point of this is for you to do your own research. And now I'd like to introduce to you guys Keith S. Hey Keith, how you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. It's a beautiful day.
Is it? It's a beautiful day out here too. The scenery here that I got for this video is the same as my last. It's pretty much a picture of my front window view, and it is a beautiful day out there. I can't wait to get out there and enjoy some of it. It's still a little bit early in the morning here in Alaska. It's only 9:30 or so. So when we're done here, I'm going to go ahead and enjoy some of the outside weather and get outside for a little bit. Why don't you go ahead and tell the subscribers of the Alaska Prepper community a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm just an average person. I work and drove truck for a living, and I'm home every day, and I own 7¼ acres out in the middle of nowhere in northern Michigan. You know, just typical, normal, hard-working guy. You know, nice. I go to church on Sundays. You know, I got my family. I got my grandson. You know, I'm a family-centered person.
Nice.
You know, I live for my grandkids, basically, and what I do is basically setting them up.
That's awesome, man. That is great. That is great to hear. So whatever research you've done or whatever knowledge you've gained about the grand solar minimum, it's knowledge and research that you've pretty much done on your own, right?
Yes, it is. You know, you can go online and check everything out, but I want to make a disclaimer beforehand, too, is that when I went to school, I didn't graduate at the top of the class or anything like that. I'm no brainchild. I'm just a normal person. But you can go online and you can look at things that and look at past history and stuff. But one of the things that there's charts online that you can look at that go back 4,000 years, and it can show the cycle of the sun and stuff.
Right.
All my information is, you know, I gathered and did my own research, because if you do your research, you can look at it, and you got one person that's saying that, you know, the Earth is heating up, and you got another person that says it's cooling down, and you got another person that is, oh, it's just everyday normal, this is everything, and you got several different opinions. Everybody has an opinion.
Right. And Keith, let me interject real quick. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard the term grand solar minimum on the mainstream media?
No.
But you've heard the term global warming and climate change, right?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so it's like I've told people before, like I've told you all before, is that the mainstream media, in my opinion, likes to lie by omission. They like to tell you things that they want you to know, and they won't tell you things that they don't want you to know. So, and this is a perfect example. You know, global warming started out as global warming. Now it's changed into climate change. And I actually saw an article a few days ago, I should have posted this, where they're now saying that the reason the Earth, they're starting to acknowledge that it's getting a little cooler, but they're saying that the reason it's getting cooler is because of global warming, which to me is ridiculous. But like I said, let's go ahead and start this off, Keith. What is in your opinion, and the amount of research you've done, what is the grand solar minimum?
Well, the grand solar minimum is where the sun has sun flares, and the flares are really active. That's when the things get warmed up, and that's what we're going through. The sun has a cycle of about 11-year cycle, and where it has activities on the flares. The flares will flare up a lot in that, towards one end of that 11 years, and at the other end of it is where it has less flare up. And when it has less flare up, we have the sun radiation that affects the Earth, because that what heats and cools the Earth and stuff. And it also, there's a lot more science into that. But we're going into a minimum, which is less solar flares. And when we have less solar flares, that's where things are starting to cool down. And when we have that cool down effect, we're going to also have more earthquakes, and we're going to have more volcano actions, eruptions around the world.
Yeah, just like it's happening in Hawaii and all over the world now, a high number of volcanoes are erupting, not just in Hawaii, but all over the world. There's volcanoes erupting everywhere. And so recapping on what you said about what the grand solar minimum is pretty much the sun heats and cools in cycles. And during the cooling cycles, the sun irradiates less energy. Now, what I understand about the earthquakes and the volcanoes is that, and the cloud formations, is that when the sun sends less energy to the earth, because it's in a cool down phase, more cosmic rays are able to enter the earth. And the cosmic rays, I guess you can picture it as like a microwave that's being thrown towards the earth. And since those cosmic rays are not being blocked by the energy of the sun, they are more easily entering the earth, making the volcanic eruptions more often, as also earthquakes and more cloud formations. A study was done here a few years ago by a scientist. I believe he was out of the UK. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he was out of the UK, who has a peer-reviewed paper proving that the more cosmic rays that enter the earth, the higher the cloud formations are. And the clouds actually reflect energy away from the earth. So the more cloud cover there is, the less actual energy from the sun that the earth will be getting. And that is what we are entering into, if not have already entered into and are in the beginning stages of. So does that sound about right to you?
Yes, and that also affects our jet. We have streams up in the ocean that the air flows, and it affects those jet streams and stuff like that. And they've noticed that a change in those things too. There's a number of different changes that all you have to do is go online and check out just your local history, your past history. Go back, most of the mainstream media will go back only 5-10 years. They do not cover anything back, 100 years. Now, if we look back in the 1700s, there was where it snowed down in Florida and stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I've noticed, just like you said, whenever a paper is published about global warming, you're 100% right. I've never seen a paper published about global warming that went back before 1900. And to me, it's because it fits their narrative. Because what started around 1900, the Industrial Revolution, it's a perfect case for them to blame humanity for global warming, even though it's the sun that has it's the sun that's the culprit to the warming of our earth for the last 120 years. It's because of the sun. It's not because of mankind. Mankind was around 4,000 years ago when the temperature of the earth was higher than it is now, and there was no industrialization during that time. So they won't go back 4,000 years back and show the cycles of the up and downs in temperature. They'll only go back to 100, 120 years back so that they can fit the narrative that they want to press upon to the general population. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. You know, and they don't take into the fact, you know, like the scientists went up on the ice floes and took core samples of the ice that go back,
right,
you know, 4,000 years and did analysis on those ice samples. Then they never bring any of that kind of information up. You don't bring in the fact that, you know, our local history. Look at China, the dynasties and all that. All the great dynasties that exist all come to erupt in when a solar minimum came in because they could not feed their people and stuff.
That's right.
There's all kinds of history involved in that. And like if we take a look at our history, not the history that, you know, people put up and they change it, and you know, like they're trying to do with our last 100 years or 200 years of history in the United States. They're trying to change it around and to make it fit their needs. It's the true history that goes back. It shows what the outcome of what the results that are happening now.
Right. So that's a good segue onto the next question that I have for you. What effects do you think that the sun producing less energy do you think will have on humanity as a whole?
Oh, there's a lot of effects that's going to happen. And you take a look at our planting of food. Our food that, you know, like the crops and stuff like that. As I was on the news, and I don't go to the mainstream news. I go to the agriculture news and stuff like that. And there's different other places I go to that look. And they're looking at their planting schedules, and they're behind, almost 4 weeks behind on planting than they're normal.
That's right, yeah. And I think on one of my previous episodes, I pointed out that this year, Russia won't be exporting as many grains as they did last year. Another one I can think about is that Africa will be importing more than 100% more grains than they did last year because they produced about 50% less than they did last year. And also in the U.S. this year, there was a shortfall in the production of grains. And when I say this year, I mean last year. And as you said, in the U.S. this year, the planting season has been pushed to the right because it's still too cold in the areas that, you know, produce wheat and soybeans and corn and things like that for them to even put any seeds in the ground yet. So I see that this is probably the beginning of the years that we're going to have of reduced production of food because of the weather being, or because of the winters being longer and the planting seasons being shorter. And now here in the U.S., we're pretty lucky because we have a very high standard of living in comparison to the rest of the world. So about 3 billion people worldwide live on less than $2 a day. So imagine if that were the case here. It would be 100% different than what we're used to now. So what do you think will happen when the food shortages come to a point where we are going to have to start importing grains instead of exporting grains? What do you think is going to happen as far as the availability of food? Do you think that the government may start nationalizing farms? Do you think that the government may start putting price controls on food? Things like you've seen in Venezuela and in India and things like that?
Well, there's a couple things you got to look at. As far as the government will definitely step in because you're going to have people that are going to want and they're going to need. Okay, and another thing you got to look at too is that the quality of the food.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean they'll say, "Hey, I got a barn full of wheat here." but that wheat is infected with all kinds of other pesticides and stuff like that. It's not edible for human consumption, but it's good for animal consumption.
Right, right. And also the quality of the protein in the wheat is probably going to go down because the plant is not going to be getting as much energy as it needs to produce that good quality protein. Right,
and the quality of the food is going to be poorer. So when you're going to have less food, less quality, less production, and you got high demand, and I don't remember the exact quota, but there's like 7 billion people in the world or something like, a whole lot of people, okay?
Right.
When you look at all these people, and we don't have enough food to feed them, what's going to happen? There's going to be a lot of different things that are going to take effect. You're going to have, in the cities, riots. You're going to have organizations, groups where people are going to say, okay, I belong to this group, this clan, and stuff like that. Just like they did in China, and, in order to take care of them people. It's just like Russia, German, Iraq. We already got countries. We're going to have the same thing that's going to develop here, where we're going to be tearing down individuals just in order we can to feed our own.
Right, right, and this is probably not a very good question, but do you think that the price of food is going to go up or down henceforth?
It's going to go up. It's going to keep going up.
Yeah, it is.
And like I said here again, the quality of food, the amount of, the price of it is going to go up. The demand on the food, you're not going to get the same kind of quality food that you're accustomed to.
Right. So, hey, Keith, let me put on my tinfoil hat for a second. So, if you've ever listened to all of these eugenicists like Bill Gates, and I forgot the name of the few others, but Bill Gates stands out because he's a famous personality, who say that there's too many people on the earth now. Do you think that the powers that be know what's coming ahead and that they're keeping us ignorant to this fact about a grand solar minimum happening just so that the population can be wound down a little bit?
Yes, I do. But you got to look at what Bill Gates and them are doing. They're investing in food production, like hydroponics and stuff like that. That they're taking billions of dollars and putting it into that so that they can grow food for themselves.
Right, right, and they're also building multi-million-dollar bunkers in New Zealand and here in the U.S. as well. It's always captured my mind to think that our government here in the U.S. has bunkers that will accommodate government personnel. But they don't have bunkers that will accommodate its population, the people that they are in charge of taking care of or working for. Whereas in other countries like Russia, they have enough bunkers, underground bunkers, for their entire population. Russia has enough underground bunkers that can accommodate 40 million people. And I think that here in the U.S., it's not even close to that. It's probably just enough to accommodate the people that work for the government and their families. So that to me says a lot about how much a government cares about its people when it has only enough facilities to accommodate its governmental employees and not the population as a whole.
Yes. We can go back and look at history again when it comes to those points. If you look at, I'm trying to think of the country right now, but they just discovered a whole underground city network that is completely underground.
Huh, okay.
And this is way back, before Christ's time, okay? And they've seen that this stuff is coming beforehand, and they know because they look at their history, and when they look at their history, and they know that it comes into cycles, and everything that falls through, they could say, okay, this is the way it is. You look at our year. We have 4 seasons up here, so we have different seasons that we go through, and we plan accordingly to those seasons. These people were smart because they were setting up for it. prior to that. You know, they were building it. If you look at, I want to say, I can't think of it, the Irish, okay, for instance. The Irish, they survived one of the ice ages because they had potatoes, which is a crop that grow in cold weather, and they could harvest it. But you also look at their homes. 99% of their homes were earth-firm homes that were built in the earth. They were small, easy, energy efficient, and stuff like that.
Right. Hey, now, Keith, I have a question for you. How long have you lived in Michigan?
All my life.
Let me ask you something. Have you noticed anything about the weather in Michigan? Have the winters been getting longer, or have they been getting shorter? Have they been getting colder or warmer? What do you, in your opinion, what's been going on with the weather there since you've been living there?
I have noticed that the weather has been changing quite drastically. Okay, the colders are colder. The snow is more snow. The summers are hotter and stuff like that. And a grand solar minimum is not the things that are changing drastically. They're going from one extreme to another. Like 3 weeks ago, we had all kinds of snow on the ground. Right. Here.
Right.
And now I'd say it's close to 80 degrees out here right now.
Yeah, same thing in Africa. In northern Africa, they're having floods, and in southern Africa, they're having droughts. So picture that. Same thing here in the U.S. Look at the U.S. We're having floods in the eastern part of the country, and here in California, they're still in a drought, and they're having a lot more heat. So yeah, so it's like you said, the weather is changing drastically, not even from year to year, but maybe from month to month.
From season to season.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me ask you, Keith, in your opinion, to prepare for what's coming, or to prepare for what we think is coming, what do you think are some good tips that some of our viewers can get in order to prepare for what's coming?
Well, there's several things that you look into. That the biggest thing is that if you're taking care of your food, you need food, water, shelter, okay? And you need air. If you don't have air, you can't breathe. If you don't have water, you're not going to live. You need all these things to implement into your lifestyle. So, like for instance, I got a small cabin that's less than 500 square feet. I can heat it with a 30,000 BTU during the heart of winter. And I can use bottled gas, and I have a 500-gallon tank, and that will last me a whole year. Okay, I also set it up for a wood stove heat, so I can heat it with wood, which would be a very small wood stove because I have less, so I'm not going to burn all that much wood. I'm located in where I have plenty of wood around me, naturally wood, hardwoods and stuff like that all around me, so I have an endless source of heat. Then the next thing I'm going to need to do is to set up, I can get water easy enough. There's a lake that's not even a mile away from me. And I can put a well, hand pump well, and I can get water in 20 feet. So I can get water pretty simple. I got a well here, but I'm going to put in a hand pump well eventually. And so I got water covered. The next thing I'm going to want to cover is food. And food is, you can store your grains and stuff like that. But the more important thing is what I can grow on my own that I can eat and provide for my family with needs.
Right. Good point. Good point. And Keith, let me add to this. So you're saying what you would do to prepare from your perspective, but I wanted to add in there, if you live in a city. First of all, if I lived in a crowded city, the first thing I would want to do is try to relocate. However, I know that not everyone can do that. So this is my recommendation for someone that lives in a crowded city. Do your 5 B's of prepping, okay? And in addition to that, see if you have family or friends that live in an area that's not as crowded. And get with them and talk this over and see if they would accommodate you and your family if times ever got tough enough where you needed to bug out of your city apartment or your city dwelling. That way you can at least have somewhere to go. And maybe stock up some preps with your family or friend that lives away from the city. That way you can at least have somewhere to go. And, oh, go ahead, Keith.
You know, I'm in the same situation. I have a trailer in a trailer park in a big city, and I know if everything went downhill in the city, I would not be able to survive. I can have all the ammo I want and all the food I want, but I will never be able to protect it in a trailer park.
That's right. So yeah.
That's the reason why I got this property out in the middle of nowhere. And
right. That's a great idea.
You know, this cabin was originally a deer hunting cabin, and I bought it, and it was squirrel infested. Yeah, I had to gut it, in order for me to, make it livable.
Right, and that and when my wife and I decided to build our own home, it would have been easier for us to just buy a home in town in the city. But one of the things that I really had to emphasize was that I wanted to live north of Fairbanks and that I wanted to live in an area that was not very populated, because if something ever were to happen, people are not going to go north from the city. They're going to go south. And that means that the influx of refugees, if you want to call them that, would not be coming my way. They would be leaving my area and going south. So that's one of the main reasons why I built the home where I built it. So, hey, listen, Keith, we're running a little short in time here. It's been a great conversation. So we can talk after this and see if we're going to do a part 2 to this, and maybe get into a couple of charts so that the people can actually have something to look at and be able to actually, look at something and see it with their own eyes. I want to thank you very much, man. I really appreciate your time and the effort that you put into doing this interview. I will be very glad to have you back for a second interview and then some if you'd like to come back. Do you have any closing comments that you want our subscribers to hear?
Yes, there's one closing comment. The reason why I agreed to come on here is because you have a policy that you say, you reach one, teach one, and repeat.
Yes, sir.
And that's one thing that I wanted to try to do is reach one and teach one, and if it's only one, and then be able to repeat it again and do it over again. That's
right. It makes all the difference in the world. So yeah, just remember.
Right. We can't do this on our own. We have to have a network of people and friends that we can do this together.
That's right. I couldn't have said it better myself, Keith. So, ladies and gentlemen, having said that, Keith, thank you very much again for coming on here with me today. I truly do appreciate it, and I really appreciate the value that you add to our community. And if you want to stick on the phone here for about another minute or so, and then we'll talk a little bit afterwards. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope that you got some value out of it. Remember, just like Keith said, it's very important to do your own research. And like I said as well, do your own research. Go out there and look at this. Don't just turn away because you've been indoctrinated to think otherwise. It's very easy to turn away from something, but it's more difficult, and it's usually worthwhile to look into these matters yourself so that you can come up with your own conclusion. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, let me end this with, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. And remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to you and your families. We'll talk to you later on. This is Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.